Okay, hello everyone. A very good morning and welcome to PLUTUS IAS. Guys, today we are going to discuss GS paper 3 economy section, Indian economy section. Okay, so let's get started. Fine. So, this is question number 1 and it is saying that examine the pattern and trend of public expenditure on social services in the post-reform period. Guys, this post-reform means they are talking about the period of after 1991 and 2. Okay? That's what we mean by post-reform. Clear? Fine. In India, to what extent this has been in consonance with achieving the objective of inclusive growth? They are saying that to what extent it has been in consonance in achieving the objective of inclusive growth. Now we have to understand that they are asking us about the pattern of sufficient inclusive growth. Okay, or you can say it in simple words that what is the pattern that is required for inclusive growth. This is what is asked in question, and after 1991 what all steps had been taken, what all public expenditure has been incurred by the government so that the inclusive growth can be promoted. Okay, that's it. So first of all guys, we need to understand that what is inclusive growth. Okay, so inclusive growth means, according to World Bank, and you can quote it, according to World Bank, inclusive growth is pace and pattern. Getting my point? It is pace and pattern. That's what inclusive growth is. So that means we are talking about the growth of GDP as well as the economic growth. Okay. So now I will simplify the question. Question is simply asking us that after 1991-92 what all public expenditure has been done by the government so that, or which has led to the GDP growth as well as economic growth in the country. That's what the question is. Okay, now let's get to the answer. So see, if we talk, there are certain points that I will like to illustrate, and you could have elaborated these points and you could have got wonderful marks. Okay, so post 1991 government has increased the allocation of funds for different schemes in India. So after 1991 what government has done, one major step taken by government is that it has increased the allocation of funds for different schemes of social welfare, that is education, okay, health, etc. Initially, before 1991-92, whatever fund government was allotting for these areas of education, health, after 1991 and 92, government has increased the allocation. That means government is spending more on these sectors. Clear? Okay. Then schemes introduced and consolidated, and in this regard government has introduced several schemes for social welfare of the citizens, and there were other schemes. Basically there were many schemes, okay, but more or less these schemes were serving the same purpose, so there was no need of so many schemes. So in such cases government has consolidated those schemes. Getting my point? Next is, government has introduced means and methods of transferring or of allocation of fund, and one of that method is DBT. DBT means direct benefit transfer. Okay, so government is now using another modus operandi for allocation of fund, and that is DBT. DBT is direct benefit transfer. What happens here is that the fund which has to be given to a particular individual is directly sent to the bank account of that individual. Okay, initially the funds were sent to the various organizations and individuals were required to collect the fund from those organizations. I am talking pre 2014. After 2014, this scheme has been introduced where the beneficiary's account is credited with the fund given by government. Clear? That is direct benefit transfer. Next is measuring effectiveness is more important. So yes, government has taken measures, government is doing whatever is necessary, but government also has to concentrate, it has to look that how effective these schemes are on the ground. So measuring the effectiveness is important, whether the things are being carried out in a proper sequence or not, that's also the job of the government. Many schemes allocation done, but utilization rate very low. And why am I saying so? Because several schemes of allocation have been done, but the utilization rate is very low. Getting my point? The individuals who are getting benefited, the real individuals who require the funds or who need the help, so such individuals are less. That means that there are discrepancies and other elements are taking advantage of it. So government has to measure the effectiveness. As I told you, leakages are there, funds are getting transferred, or other people who do not need the money, they are getting the money, they are using it. And then government has to do the better targeting. Government has to do the survey. It has to understand that who all actually need the fund. The targeting should be proper, and then government could perform better in this regard. Okay. So these are the steps, and these were the challenges, as I told you, challenges. Okay. Now way forward, what is in future? So see, developing social infra, government is working on it, and it is a requisite. Government will develop a social infrastructure so that the allocation schemes can be carried on in a proper way. Then is using digital tools. Guys, today is the age of AI. Technology has advanced to new level. So government should also, Indian government should also employ these tools for our effectiveness. Okay, digital tools should be used by government. Next is expanding the coverage, and government should pay special attention and take special measures so that more and more needy people can come under the domain of these schemes. Understood? Question number 1 is clear to you all? Okay. Okay, moving on, let's talk of question number 2. So question number 2 is, what are the causes of persistent high food inflation in India? Guys, this high food inflation is also called as stubborn inflation. And what's the reason? Why is it called stubborn inflation? The reason being that doesn't matter whatever step government takes or the schemes government make, but still the inflation in food persists. And that's what the question is, that why is it persisting? What are the causes of persistent high food inflation? That why this inflation is still existing despite of the several steps taken by the government. Comment on the effectiveness of the monetary policy of RBI to control this type of inflation. So what all steps RBI can take, how effective the monetary policy of RBI can be in countering the food inflation. Okay. So see guys, if we talk about factors contributing to inflation, that is food inflation in India, so they are cultivation. First is cultivation pattern. See guys, Indian farming or agriculture has developed, there is no doubt in it, but it has not reached to that level where most of the work is done by the use of technology. Still, we are relying on the age-old methods and tools for cultivation. And these tools, these methods are less productive, plus they are more expensive in comparison to technological processes that are prevalent and available today. Okay? So as the farmers are using these methods to cultivate, thereby the production will be less, and if production will be less but demand is high, that means supply is less but demand is high, so automatically the cost or price of these crops will rise. Yes or no? See, cost will rise. Why I said cost or price will rise? Cost is going to rise because, as I told you, these traditional methodologies are expensive, okay, and less productive. Being expensive, the input cost is going to rise, and since less productive, so crops produced will not be high, quantity will not be high, thereby their supply will be less, and when supply is less but demand is high, so automatically there will be rise in the prices. Getting my point? Okay. Second is MSP, minimum support price. See, to safeguard the interest of farmers, and this phenomena of MSP is very relevant phenomena nowadays, because farmers are still demanding, they are still on strike in several places in India, you all must be aware. And what's their major demand? They have got several demands, but one of their major demand is MSP. They want security, minimum support price. That's what MSP is. So they want actually written guarantee from government that if their yield or if their produce is not purchased in the market, or if that produce is purchased at a lower rate, then government should do an agreement with the farmers. It should give in written that government will purchase all the produce from the farmers at this particular price called as minimum support price. So see guys, there are several crops in which government is giving MSP. Now when government is giving MSP, that means, let's say I'll take an example of, let's say, wheat. So let's say government has set the wheat, if I talk about wheat, so let's say government has set the MSP for wheat as 20 rupees per kg. And let's say in an year the produce of wheat is high, supply is high. Now when supply is high, then what will happen? Prices will not rise, yes or no? So let's say in the market, people are not ready to pay 20 rupees. They are saying we will give 15 rupees per kg for wheat. So what will happen? Farmers will say that, okay, if you are not going to give me 20 rupees, I am not going to sell it to you. Rather, I'll go and sell it to the government. Yeah. So a trader who has to do the business, or people, customers who need wheat, it's a staple food in India. So what will they do? They will purchase it for 20. Yes or no? They are compelled to do so, thereby giving a hike in the price. Getting my point? So that's what is happening due to MSP. Next is higher input cost. So guys, as I told you, the input cost, since the farmers or the agriculture is reliant on the old methodology, thereby the food, pay attention, thereby the crops manufactured, the crops cultivated, they have higher cost. Understood? Yeah. Just a minute. Okay, fine. So since they are relying on the old methodology, thereby the input cost is high, and when input cost is high, then what will happen? Then obviously prices are going to hike, prices are going to rise. Clear? Is this much clear to all? Okay. So let's proceed. Fine. Next is rising demand. See guys, population in India is already 140 CR and it is increasing day by day. So there are so many mouths to be fed. But pay attention, the agreeable land is not increasing. The mouths that require the crop, it is increasing. But the agreeable land where crop is grown is not increasing, it is same. And in some cases it is contracting even, anyway, due to climate change and all. But demand is high, supply is same, or somewhere it is becoming less. What will it lead to? It will again lead to price hike. Okay. Rainfall patterns and heat waves. Guys, now this is a factor, climate factor, that due to the change in the rainfall, the monsoon is continuously shifting. Okay. Initially, the months when monsoon came into certain places, it has shifted. So the rainfall patterns have changed, and every year due to global warming, what's happening? There are heat waves. Yeah, drastic changes occurring in the climate. Every year is becoming hot, hotter and hottest. Okay, so this is again damaging the agricultural produce. Understood? Next is imports and exchangeables. See guys, one of the factor also responsible for the price hike is imports. In India, as I told you, the arable land is limited, but demand is high. So what is left? Government will import the crops, yes or no? And if government is going to import it, the price will be high of the crops. That is also one of the reason of high food inflation. Clear? Understood? Okay, now let us talk about effectiveness of RBI in controlling inflation via monetary policy. So guys, if you are not aware, I am not going to talk about monetary policy here, but just giving you a brief overview of it. So if I talk about monetary policy, so RBI employs various quantitative tools. And what are these quantitative tools? CRR, cash reserve ratio, statutory liquid ratio, open market operations, okay, then reverse repo, repo rate, bank rate, etc., etc. I have written few. Now, if you look at all these tools, and you might be aware of it, what is the purpose of these tools? Basically, these tools, they are controlling the interest rates. Yes or no? They are controlling the interest rate in the market. And when they are controlling the interest rate, then more or less, they are actually controlling the demand side. Demand side is the consumer side. They are controlling, or RBI has control, or RBI has got control over the demand side. RBI can only influence the consumers, but not the supply side. Yes or no? And the problem, as you have seen, it is a supply side problem. So how can RBI be effective in solving a supply side problem when the tools it at its dispose are of demand side? Getting my point? RBI can only change the patterns in the demand side, not in the supply side. Supply side can only be controlled by the government, and this problem is the supply side problem. Clear? So, RBI will be ineffective, its monetary policy will be ineffective in controlling the high food inflation in food items. Clear? Okay, and you can, I'll give you one example also. See what happened a couple of years back. What government did was, government increased the tariff on the imported cooking oil. or edible oils. Now most of the edible oil that we consume, it is imported, and when tariff is imposed on it, that means the taxes are increased on the import. So what will it result in? It will result in the price hike of edible oil, again high food inflation. Okay, so these were few points that you could have illustrated in your answer. Moving on, third question, it is saying, what were the factors responsible for the successful implementation of land reforms in some parts of the country? Elaborate. Now guys, they are actually talking about the period that is after independence. After independence, land reforms were introduced in India. So let me give you a brief background of it, that what was actually the requirement to introduce the land reforms, and you could have written this background also in the introduction, and then I will move on to the body of the question. Okay, so see, if we talk about the land reform, so see, after independence, the government of India, it realized that what happened in independence, after independence, was that partition of India took place. Pakistan got separated, right? So most of the fertile plains, most of the fertile agreeable land, it went into the territory of Pakistan. So most of the fertile land went with the Pakistan, and most of the population in India that remained in India, it was poor. So poverty prevailed in India. I am talking in relative terms, okay? And agreeable, producible land went to Pakistan. Getting my point? Fertile land went to Pakistan, and most of the mouths, poor mouths that required food, they remained in India. Okay? Now pay attention. At that time, 50% of your GDP came from agriculture. Okay? And 70% of the population was also dependent on agriculture. Okay? But despite of this, farmers were not having the land. Farmers were not having the land to cultivate. Why? Because most of the land, agreeable land, was in the clutches of jamindars. Okay? Farmers were not having the land to cultivate, lands were with the jamindars, and fertile land went with Pakistan. So whatever was left, most of it was with the jamindars. So when farmers won't have land, how will they cultivate? Therefore, it was an urgency with the government to introduce land reforms. Government felt an urgent need to introduce land reforms as fast as possible. Okay? Therefore, land reforms were introduced. Getting my point? Okay. Now, if I talk about factors, so see, first thing I already told you, policies of the government realized that it needs to introduce land reforms. Okay. Second is need for higher food production. As I told you, most of the population, 70% of the population was dependent on agriculture. Plus, if you talk about the produce was very low. So what was required? Higher food production. And for higher food production, we need land, and the lands were with the jamindars. So the government had to take some step to introduce it, okay, to get the land free from the jamindars. Then proactive approach followed by some of the states. See, there were some states who understood this problem way beforehand, before central government or union government could take any action, and they started pressurizing the central government to introduce land reform so that this problem can be sorted out or could be solved. Okay. Then is cooperative farming and social reforms like Bhudan. At that point of time, there was cooperative farming. Small farmers, they combined their lands, or they started cultivating the same crop, okay, in cooperation. That was cooperative farming, and there was sort of social movement also. People who were having lot of land, they started donating their land. That is referred as bhudan. Okay, bhu means land and dan means donation. Okay. Now, if these were the factors that led to the land reforms, and in the first 5-year plan, the land reforms and the agricultural land things, they were introduced. Anyway, recent reforms, what recent reforms have been taken? Modernization of land and cards. See, land records. Modernization of land record means that now the proper paper of land are available in the tehsils. Okay, not everywhere, but yeah, process has started, and in many places the proper record of farming land is available in the tehsil, that to whom the land belongs, who is the owner, how much is the length and everything. Okay. Second is Swamitva scheme. What is Swamitva scheme? It is actually the digitalization of the papers. The papers of the land, they are not digitalized, and government is thinking in terms of making it in the form of a card. A card will be given to a farmer who will be the owner of the land, and that card will have a code, and if you scan that code, you will get all the details of the land, who is the owner, how much is the land, before this owner, whose land was this, who sold it, everything. Got my point? So all these are the steps taken by the government. Did you understand? Okay. So let's proceed. Question number 11. It says, discuss the merits and demerits of the 4 labor codes in the context of labor market reforms in India, and what has been progress so far in this regard. So see guys, if I talk about labors, if I talk about labor laws, so these labor laws, they have been a problem. I am giving you the background, and you could have introduced this background in the introduction. So labor laws have been the problem in India for a way long period. Why? Because labor, this is a concurrent topic. And when I say concurrent topic, I mean that both state and the union have got the authority to frame laws or make changes in the laws. Okay, as labor being the concurrent topic. Clear? Due to this, what has happened, that there were more than 100 labor laws. There were more than 100 labor laws, because both state and the union can frame laws. And it was a popular saying at that time that if you 100% abide with the laws, labor laws framed by the union, then you are ought to violate 20% of the laws framed by state government. That means so many laws, and they were contradictory to each other, that if you are following the government, then you are violating the laws of state. Getting my point? That was the scenario. Clear? So there was and due to this, what happened? Understand, due to this, foreign companies, FDI, FPI, they were quite hesitant in investing in India or starting a business in India, because they were unsure that whether their business will flourish or not. Yeah, there is a huge potential in India. India is a huge market, but market will come into play when you are able to supply the goods. Yes or no? But there is a problem in the manufacturing, na? So how will you be able to supply? What is the problem? One of the factor of production, that is labor. There are so many laws related to it that it is very tough to give employment or to get out the work from that labor. And this being the reason, all the businesses, all the multinationals, I am not talking about today's scenario, I am talking about 90s, 30 years back. All the businesses, they went to Dubai, went to Taiwan, etc., other places, not to India. Multinationals did not come to India, and this labor law was one of the major reason behind it. Okay, So yes, this was a welcome and good step by the government, and in 2019 and 2020 government proposed to rationalize the labor laws in India. Getting my point? Yes or no? And what government did was, there were 30 laws, okay, and government rationalized. Out of 100, government deleted and considered, reconsidered, and came to the conclusion that there are 30 laws which need to be rationalized, and government rationalized it, and government gave 4 codes under which these laws came. Number 1 was Occupational Safety, Health and Working Code of 2020. I am just narrating the name. You could have written these codes in your paper. So Occupational Safety, Health and Working Code of 2020. Second is the Code on Wages, that was proposed in 2019. Third is the Code on Social Security 2020. Then the Industrial Relations Code of 2020. Okay. So these codes were passed by the union government, but these codes are yet to be notified. They are still not notified. The reason being, as I have already told you, that labor is a concurrent subject, so state also has got a right and authority to object to the laws that central government is coming up with. So there are several states who do not agree with these laws, these new laws or reforms that union government is bringing about. So they are objecting, that's why it has not been notified till now. And one more thing, just to give you information, Modi 3.0, this government, union government, it was in its agenda of first 100 days that it will get the labor laws notified. By the way, 100 days of Modi government have passed by, but still labor laws have not been notified. Okay. Okay. Now let's talk about the merits and demerits of the code so that you can have the proper understanding. Okay. Then we will conclude this answer. So see, if I talk about the merits of these codes, so reduces the number of labor laws, which was a very big problem. So it has actually reduced the number of labor laws. Second, laws representing the current environment. See guys, labor laws that were being used before 2019 and 2020, by the way they are used till now even, because it is still not, these new laws are still not being notified, but these laws were made somewhere in 1948, so many years back. So guys, the economical condition of 1948, the environment of 1948, the requirement and demand of 1948 were way different from the requirement, demand and environment of today. You can say that those laws were stale, unusable. Getting my point? So, obsoleted sort of thing. Now, these laws, which new laws, they are apt to the current environment. Clear? Third is case of the ease of doing business. Okay? Ease of doing business. These laws, as I told you, the old laws had the problem that, and because of that problem, several problems, foreign businesses were not coming to India. To start a business by an Indian in India was very tough. But these laws, these new laws, due to them, the ease of doing business has been initiated. Business can be done with ease. Okay. Next is empowerment of women. See guys, earlier, if you talk about, just giving an example, if you talk about night shift, so only male population was doing the night shift. Now even female population gets the option, it's optional for female, but yes, now they have choice in the matter. They can choose to do night shift or not. Okay. And more women are getting job, their rights are also safeguarded in these new laws, thereby empowering the women workforce so that more women can be the part of the economy, in the working of the economy. Next is extending the benefits to the informal sector. Pay attention. See guys, in India, we have got formal and informal sector, and most of the people, they are employed in informal sector. Now, these laborers who are working in informal sector, They were not having any laws to safeguard their interest. People working in formal sector, only their safety, their health was safeguarded by the old labor laws. There was nothing for informal sector. Now these new laws, they are considering the safety and welfare of informal sector laborers as well. Okay. So these are few merits of these laws. If we talk about demerits of these laws, so first is capitalist in nature. See, these laws are being accused of being capitalist in nature. It is being said that instead of favoring the laborers, they are actually favoring the firms. Second, need for consensus from all stakeholders. As I told you that state is also the stakeholder in it. State also has got a say in this matter. So union government, state, trade union, labor, everyone should come to a common agreeable agenda, then only the laws will be applicable. Next is easy hiring and firing policy. See, the labor laws were framed, one of the main objective of it was that firms could not fire the laborers that easily, that when there is need, when there is season, so hire, and when there is no requirement of labor, then kick them out. So to prevent it, labor laws were made one of the reason, primary reason. But these new labor laws, they have actually made it easy for a firm to hire and fire the laborers. Okay. Next is diminishing the rights of workers and the role of trade unions. So instead of promoting the right of laborers, it is accused, these laws are being accused of that instead of promoting their rights, it is actually diminishing their rights, and it is also diminishing the rights of trade unions. Trade unions, I hope you know, the union of these laborers, which argues with the firms and the owners to increase the salary to safeguard the rights of the workers. So it is actually diminishing the trade unions as well. Clear, guys? Okay. Moving on. Next is, what is the need for expanding the regional air connectivity in India? In this context, discuss the government's UDAN. UDAN means Udega Desh Ka Aam Nagrik scheme. Okay, and its achievement. Okay. So guys, when they are saying regional connectivity, they are talking about air connectivity, regional air connectivity. Okay. So what they are saying, that what is the need? What is the requirement? Why government is expanding the air connectivity to the regional areas? Okay. And in this context, we need to discuss the UDAN scheme and all. So pay attention. First of all, I am going to give you several reasons why it is necessary or why it is required by the government to expand the connectivity to the regional areas. So first of all, see, airports unutilization or underutilization. So it's not like that there was no infra in the regional areas. There was infra, there were airports there, but these airports were not used, they were not utilized, and even when they were used, they were underutilized, not used to their full potential. So actually that was a waste. Getting my point? Airport was constructed, but no connectivity, not operating or operating at the lower potential. So actually it was a waste. Getting my point? So hence government said that no, we won't waste the resources. We will make these airports working. Okay. Second is, see guys, if you talk about the airports or the air services that are prevalent in the metro cities or in the major cities and the airlines that are working, these are actually unaffordable for the middle class. Such high is the fare of the ticket. And you'll be surprised to know that only 2% of the entire population, 2% of the entire population is using the air facilities or aeroplane as the conveyance medium. Government wants more and more people to use this medium of connectivity, to use airlines, and for that government needs to take initiatives. Thereby government is increasing the reach of air services to the regional areas. Third, promotion of aviation industry. As I told you that aviation industry needs to get promoted, very less participation from the commoners is here. Fourth is movement of passengers and agricultural commodities. See guys, in India, one of the major problem is this, that if you talk about agricultural produce, so let's say something is being produced in Kerala, and the people of, let's say, Delhi, they love that crop. But now this is a problem, because to get the crop transported from Kerala to Delhi via train, it will take a hell amount of time, 10-12 days, and crop may get rotten by that time. Or even if it is preserved, then external means have to be employed to preserve it, so that it is being stopped from getting rotten. And for that, extra cost will be incurred by the farmer. And when extra cost will be incurred, so overall the price of the crop will increase. So not many customers will be able to buy it. So that's a problem. But if these crops, these agricultural produce can be transferred in lesser amount of time by the use of air services, then the cost of the crop will reduce. More and more customers can purchase it, thereby benefiting both the farmer and the consumer. Else farmer was not getting benefited. Yeah, he increased the price of the product, but that was the price which he incurred for transferring it, for transporting it, for making the crop reach the market. So that extra price is not going into the pocket of farmer. It is not benefiting him. It is actually a waste. Yes or no? Okay. Now, next is that if there will be an air connectivity in all these regions, then what will happen? These regions will also grow. Yes or no? Okay. So, due to these problems, due to these factors, in 2016, government introduced National Civil Aviation Policy called NCAP. In 2016, government introduced National Civil Aviation Policy. Okay. And under this policy, government introduced Regional Connectivity Scheme RCS. Under this policy, there is the scheme called Regional Connectivity Scheme RCS. Okay. And this RCS is also called, this initiative is also called UDAN, Udega Desh Ka Aam Nagrik. So RCS, Regional Connectivity Scheme, is also called as UDAN, Udega Desh Ka Aam Nagrik. Okay. So UDAN, that was announced by Civil Aviation Policy of 2016, and the aim was to connect Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. Okay. The airlines, and they will offer what another factor or what another policy was there in UDAN, that airlines are actually going to reduce or give the discount of 50% in the airfare. Okay. Seats were subsidized till 2,500 per hour. That much subsidy was given. Okay. That, and what was the target? The target was to achieve the connectivity of 100 airports by 2024. So these were the features of UDAN. Okay. And what all has been done so far? More than 400 routes have been launched. Many of the routes have been discontinued, which were not giving any profit or which were unnecessary. Those routes have been cancelled. Next is, after pandemic corona has been a major effect. It has affected the demand, and this question was asked in the parliament, and that at that time in 2021 the aviation minister said that the demand is being affected due to the corona, due to the pandemic. Okay. Cost of operation of these routes has also increased. Okay. Because of lower demand. Getting my point, guys? Okay. So that's it in this question. I hope you understood it well. Moving on to the next one. And that is, elucidate the importance of buffer stock for stabilizing agricultural prices in India. What are the challenges associated with the storage of buffer stock, and we have to discuss it in 250 words. Pay attention, guys. First of all, we need to understand what is buffer stock. So buffer stock means extra or additional stock. This means extra stock, or you can say extra or additional stocks. Okay, I'll give you an example to make you understand the concept of buffer stock. See, if you talk about food security of India, so what government does is government procures the crops. There are certain crops that are being procured by the government. And why government procures these crops? Because government provides these crops to the poor, very poor, below poverty line people at very cheap rates, at very subsidized rates. And now the government is distributing these crops to 80 CR of the people, 80-85 CR of the people for free. Okay. So from where will government get the crops to distribute for free? Government will get the crops from the farmers only. It is going to purchase or procure the crops from the farmer. Okay. So let's say initially, and why it is procuring, as I already told you, to provide it to the poor. So let's say initially, just an example, government was procuring, let's say, 100 tons of wheat. Okay, that was the procurement or requirement of wheat for the poor. Okay, so government procured 100 tons. Now if I talk about buffer stock or additional stock, so now what government will do, it will procure 100 tons of wheat and it will keep the buffer stock of wheat, let's say 20 tons. This is extra stock. This stock government is not going to distribute. What will be distributed? This 100 tons will be distributed. This was procured, it will be distributed. This procured 100 ton, it will be distributed amongst the poor, but this 20 tons, it will not be distributed. It will be the buffer stock. It will remain with the government. Got my point? Clear? Now the question comes, did you understand what is buffer stock? It is clear. Now the question comes that why buffer stock is required. So first of all, the price stabilization. See, there was a question in this paper only that we had already discussed, that persistent food inflation is there in India, which is also called as, I told you, it can be called as stubborn food inflation. So there is general hike in the price level of food items. Okay. So to prevent this hike, to control the food inflation, government is holding on to the buffer stock. Why? Because when food prices hike, as I told you, several reasons are there. One of the major reason is supply is less than the demand. Demand is high. Everyone needs food to stay alive. Yeah, but produce is not matching the demand. And there are several reasons that we have already discussed why that is the case. So what will government do? When supply is less than demand, government will use its buffer stock and it will provide the buffer stock in the market so that supply becomes equivalent to the demand and prices don't rise that much. Clear? Second is ensuring public distribution of food grains. To ensure that public properly gets the food grains are properly distributed. It shouldn't be like that someone is having a lot of it and other one is starving. Okay. Third is continuous supply of food grains or agricultural crops. See guys, as I have told you, rains have shifted their patterns. There are high heat wave patterns being observed in past 2-3 years, couple of years. So that is damaging the agriculture, that is damaging the produce, agricultural produce. So government wants, and if such thing happens, then produce gets minimized or production is low. So what will happen? How will you feed the people? Then also government will use this buffer stock so that there can be stabilization. Okay. Then is protecting the interest of the farmers. Okay. See, as I told you that if government is going to take the buffer stock, keep this additional stock, from where will government purchase it? Government will purchase it obviously from the farmers. So farmers will get the price, they'll also get benefited. Next is growth in the regions as well. Growth in the regions of farming, in the region of agriculture. Clear? Now what are the concerns or challenges related to it? So concerns are, number one, expenditure. See guys, already government has to spend a lot to procure the food it was already procuring for distribution among the poor under Food Security Act. Now government is sorting or going to procure additional stock as well. Getting my point? Now that is going to increase the expenditure of the government. Already the government is in shortage of money. Fine. Next is wastages, as limited storage capacities available. See guys, in India this is also one of the problem. We do not have the sufficient storage capacity for the food grains or crops. So already food storage capacity is limited, and on top of that you are increasing the stock of food to be stored, so that will be a problematic thing. Next is may promote cultivation of certain crops, and yeah, obviously this is one of the factor. When farmers come to know that government is procuring these certain crops, government is procuring wheat, government is procuring staple rice, so what will farmers do? Farmers will start producing these things only. They will say, wow, government will pay us for it, so why should I produce anything else? And on top of that, government is keeping extra stock of it, so I'll produce it more. Now that may also be the case that the land of a farmer is suitable for the growth of, let's say, mangoes, or let's say any vegetable, but in the greed of getting the money from the government, he will produce only those crops that are being procured by government. Okay. Then there will be issues raised by other countries. Already when Modi government is providing food security and it is not exporting the food and all, so America has criticized this step of Modi government. It is not a welcomed step, and on top of that they are now introducing buffer stock, they will procure more, so again they will be criticized in international community. Okay, so that's it guys. I hope you understood everything. Okay, so we have done everything. 6 questions of Indian economy came, we have discussed it all. I hope it is clear to you. Okay, so after this we are going to do the agricultural section. Okay, thank you.